Hello, and welcome to my literary vlog. So, as I'm going to jump right into this, I would like to talk about my improvements as a reader and writer. And as I came into this class, or over the summer even, I thought of myself as a decent reader and writer, more or less, I guess. And as I received my first grade on one of my summer responses that I thought was like one of my best ones, that quickly demolished. And now I luckily received some great insight from brilliant readers and writers such as Nabokov, Prose, and Grubmeyer. So some of the advice that stuck with me from Nabokov was going into every piece of writing with an open mind, whereas like anything that they say is you have to balance it out, which is another topic he talked about with the mountaintop, where you have to keep a equal harmony with the author's perspective and your perspective or opinions. And one of the good examples that tested my open-mindedness and balance was The Case Against Huck Finn by John H. Wallace. And to this day, I completely disagree with his opinion about the, quote, most grotesque example of racist trash ever written, unquote. He started his piece out with that, and not only did he not back it up with solid facts, which completely discredited his ethos, and it just made me not like him at all. Therefore, I didn't want to listen to his argument. He also kept using a harsh and cynical tone that he tried to degrade Twain, and it just didn't work for him because he didn't have the proper building blocks to his argument. As the quarter went on, learn more about through Everything's an Argument and reading good examples of arguments. So, as Prose says, like, reading other authors helps improves your own writing. This was a good example of what not to do. However, a good example of what to do with rhetoric was in Benjamin Banneker's letter to Thomas Jefferson about the abolishment of slavery. He really used pathos effectively along with the other forms such as logos and ethos, but pathos really stood out to me in this one, and I really focused on it in my entries, the class discussion, how he built a bridge to connect to his audience, along with using a lot of sarcasm and humor with Jefferson trying to call himself a humble servant or degrading himself a little bit lower than him to fit his social norm, which I thought was very effective because it was noticeable enough, but yet still respectful of how he tried to burn or sting Jefferson. But along with his pathos, he used ethos and logos by directly quoting Jefferson and trying to hold him accountable for what he said about equal rights and how every man is created equal. You just can't back down from your word if you have a direct quote in a letter that somebody's holding against you if you don't follow through. So I believe that this entry or this article really allowed me to expand my rhetoric, and although it is kind of confined to those three large or three largely important forms, it still like helped me further my knowledge in those three fields, which improved my understanding, and hopefully it shows in my writing as well. Although I did show some good improvement through Banneker's letter, I struggled a little bit more with the appendix to Frederick Douglass's biography. Whereas, like, I understood that he was challenging Christianity, like the main religion around that time, I didn't necessarily pair it up with a satire because I didn't really grasp that conception, really, I guess. And as we talked about in class, and now that I look back at it, as I reread the article, like Nabokov suggests in prose, I realized that it's a satire of how humanity reformed Christianity. And one of the analogies, which is a form of rhetoric, like scribes and Pharisees, how they're the top people, like the white people were, so they made the laws. They wrote them because somebody had to. Whereas these white people, they took the guidelines and the basics of Christianity and kind of molded it to their wants. Right? It didn't matter if it was ethical or moral, it was what would benefit them the most, which is exactly what the people with power during scribes and Pharisees times, like, it was completely corrupt. And so I'm glad I noticed that now, because I now have a new, even though this isn't very like an advanced term, satire, I have a better grasp on it to where I can apply it to new things or in future articles that we will read in the class. Even though I struggled with that, I did show some good improvement on my annotations, and I practiced quoting by using partial quotes, which was kind of a new thing for me in my entry. For example, Douglass used the stealing of men, prostitution of women, whippings, and, quote, cradle plunders, unquote, as a part of path to feel sympathetic towards slaves or African Americans. And that was a direct sentence from my entry. But after talking about it in class and doing a couple examples, I now use it very consistently in my writing, in my new synthesis essays, and I find it way more effective than the standardized quote, because I can now fit more information in a perfect little phrase from the writing I'm quoting. I can now just directly input it in my essay, and then I can create a more deeper explanation. So I scuba dive instead of jet ski my way around. And I believe that has deeply affected my writing and my overall improvement. One more thing that I will try to strive for in my future reading and writing is the four things that Nabokov think is absolutely necessary for a good reader and writer is imagination, memory, a dictionary, and an artistic sense. Not only did I write that on the little poster thing on the wall, but I also really believe that is essential in good writing and reading, because you need the imagination to keep your fluid intelligence going and just new ideas to intrigue the reader and also yourself. The memory also comes in handy along with the dictionary. They're kind of hand in hand because you want to keep expanding your knowledge and your vocabulary with the dictionary and retaining all the information. But the artistic sense also comes with like being a storyteller, and it really like creates a huge difference in bland, boring writing, but still has the all components of like good writing, what an AP paper might be, but with the artistic sense, you put a whole new spin on it, and it makes it interesting, it makes it enjoyable, and easier for people to understand and maybe agree with your argument. So, those are my improvements, and I thank you for exposing me to these writers and also reminding me about these writers that I've already read in the past. Thanks for your time.